All right, we have a very special and timely guest with us today. Originally hailing from La Jolla, California, he first paddled out Cloudbreak back in the late 1980s and eventually traded life on the mainland for one where he would become virtually synonymous with life on the tiny heart-shaped island of Tavarua. Over the decades, he has had a hand in transforming that island into one of the most celebrated eco-resorts on the planet, and he's been a fixture in more historic swells there than you could count. Working with the local Fijian community, he has stewarded a reputation for sustainability for Tavarua, notably leading on giant clam seeding projects and turtle hatchling programs. Beyond the waves, he champions the Fijian community, building homes, schools, and infrastructure, and has even worked as a stunt double for Tom Hanks in the movie Castaway. He is the owner, managing director of Tavarua and Namotu Island Resorts, the Fiji Islands. We have the one and only Jon Roseman. John Bula, thank you so much for coming on the lineup today.
Well, thanks, Dave. Pleasure being here. Stoked.
Appreciate it. So we're recording. It is August 21st. This episode's going to come out, I think I got to get my dates right here. Not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, which is September 2nd. I'm just going to go straight to the source here. Based on what you're seeing in the forecast, what are you looking at early window, late window for the WSL Finals running out at Cloudbreak?
Yeah. Knew that was going to be the first question. No, I mean, we're as anxious as everyone is. Forecast looks, well, swell's coming up right now, of course. And we have everyone arriving tomorrow, but the first official waiting period for the event is on Tuesday. So I think everyone's going to get a really good warm-up session this weekend. Nothing, I don't think there's going to be anything super spectacular, a little bit of a shorter interval than what I thought it was going to be originally. They drop down for kind of the remainder of this next week. And then towards the end of the waiting period, let's say September 2nd, it looks pretty good to me. So we'll see. I'm pretty excited about what's going to happen towards the end here.
Could be good juju for this podcast dropping on finals day.
Yeah.
This is we've been running the finals for a few years, and the last few years we've ran it at lower trestles. This is the last year of the WSL Finals. We're holding it at Cloudbreak. In those conversations of us, coming to the island for this sort of one-day world title deciding format, what were kind of your initial reactions when you heard about it?
I mean, we're so used to, we've hosted this, for many years now, and obviously we're used to having kind of that whole a 2-week waiting window, but also the event being held over 4.5 days. To have a finals format, which I think is super fun, super exciting. And to be able to hold it in just one day and be able to cherry pick that, it's pretty special and pretty cool. So I'm excited to see how this turns out.
Yeah. And as you said, you're on the island at the moment. Like, in this sort of window of the next week or two, like, what's your day-to-day like? Are you getting out in the water yourself? Are you supporting, the 5 men, the 5 women that are there to compete? What's your role kind of during these weeks?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, all the above. I mean, it's a huge, team effort on the island. Obviously, our number one thing is making sure everyone has an amazing, unique experience that we try to give on Tavarua Island, with our Fijian staff, our management, everyone else. We have an incredible team and crew here. Number one thing is hospitality, and we're definitely going to extend some Fijian hospitality to the top 5 for men and women's. But at the same time, we'll definitely get in the water. I like to serve every single day still, and especially if it's good.
I won't put you on the spot to make any picks because you're a pretty diplomatic guy to begin with. But just looking at that men's and women's field, and coming off of that last event at Teahupo'o in Tahiti, obviously it's not a 1-to-1, but you have an open ocean left-hand reef break, and I'm sure you have experience in Tahiti as well. A couple of questions. What do you think, for our listeners, are the key differences from your sort of expert seat between those two waves? And secondly, based on the men's and women's fields, who are you particularly going to keep an eye on out there?
I mean, I'm really excited to see the top 5 in both of them. I think everyone on the tour these days is amazing. I think with the men's, we have a pretty diverse top 5. I mean, I've known Jordy for forever, basically. And I'm super, super stoked to see him make the finals. Of course, Griff, Jack, that was an amazing, comeback in Tahiti, which I think everyone was really, really stoked on. Italo, of course, and Yago. I mean, it's going to be really, really cool. A lot of different kinds of surfing, front side, backside. I don't want to say it's going to depend on the waves, but I definitely think the waves are going to define different levels of performance, unique to each competitor. So I'm definitely not answering your question if we want to take it.
No, it's fair. Yeah.
I'm stoked for everyone.
That, yeah.
I'm stoked for everyone. Look, I think it's good. If the waves perform, which I think they will, I don't even think it's going to matter who wins. I think the whole thing's going to be absolutely amazing to have the finals here.
Yeah.
Then the women's, I mean, Caitlin, Molly, God, the women's surfing is so next level. Belu's here right now. I mean, that women's surfing in general has just skyrocketed the last few years, and just, oh my God, I've just seen, all the different women on tour just charging Cloudbreak, which, never really used to happen several years ago. Just the consequences were just super, super extreme. But oh my God, the level of surfing is just insane. I know Erin didn't make the finals, unfortunately, but I did have the pleasure of surfing with her a bunch last year on a really, really good Cloudbreak swell. And that was insane. She was getting barreled out of her mind. And it was just, again, for her age and everything, I know she got Rookie of the Year, incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. The level, I think on both sides, you're right to point out, it's jumped so much. And, bringing it back to Tavarua and, how it's really become like the home for Cloudbreak. It's obviously one of the most iconic left-handers in the world. I believe it was named after founder Dave Clark, who I had the pleasure of hanging out with a few years ago. You've seen so much there. And from a competitive standpoint, when we think about kind of the origins of competitive surfing at Cloudbreak in Fiji, the Fiji Pro, can you give us a little bit of background on where you intersected with the competitive aspects of the Fiji Pro? Yeah,
I mean, well, the very first event we had was 1987. It was called the OP Pro. Back in those days, Ocean Pacific Pro. First real professional surfing contest held in Fiji. It was amazing. And then just, of course, it evolved over the years. But I think what's amazing to me is that Cloudbreak can be a million different waves in one, literally a million different waves in the same day. And I think as far as having, a leg of the world tour, and even better, the finals, I mean, it offers everything to a surfer, right? It's multidimensional instead of one-dimensional. And so really, it takes a surfer that is adept in riding every single kind of wave. And I mean, we saw from the Volcom contest a few years ago, I mean, waves can go to 8 to 10 feet and jump up to 15 to 20 feet, which, was extreme. Of course, they did call off the contest eventually for, a bunch of reasons, mainly because I think all the competitors didn't have the right boards for the size.
We did keep the broadcast going, though. That was a special thing.
Absolutely kept the broadcast going. And I did, ironically enough, I saw Wooly at the airport on my way down here a couple of days ago. We were talking about that incredibly historic contest and everything. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that Cloudbreak offers everything, and it takes a surfer that can ride anything to do well here.
Yeah. And while the WSL Finals format's unique, typically the championship tour event has that opportunity to have local Fijians represent the community in the event against the world's best surfers. Who have been some of the primary names that you've intersected with, just from a Fijian standpoint, and how that level's jumped so much, in the past few decades?
Yeah. So, I mean, several years ago, we had some of our staff, Wanga, the Chief Druku's son, Issei, all, be wild cards during the event. Otherwise, just reminiscing about it he had with Kelly at restaurants yesterday in 2014. Incredible opportunity for those guys, right? And that was just kind of the beginning of really the advanced kind of, call it, evolution of Fijian professional surfing. Going even further back than that, Druku, his father, the chief here the late chief, unfortunately, here on Tavarua Island. He was the very first Fijian surfer.
Right.
Which is incredible. And, just thinking out loud, I mean, all the Fijians, here, they never surfed a beach break before. And of course, we do have a couple of beach breaks in Fiji, but they're a little bit further away. So their first experience is like a shallow coral reef. And their legs, they'd come in just shredded, just literally their knees, everything, blood everywhere, and just be so happy and stoked because, they didn't know the difference between surfing on a shallow coral reef and sand and everything that's forgiving. So I think that really helped advance their surfing and help them rip in amazing waves because that's what they had to surf in. And then the evolution, of course, Tavita surfed super, super well. I was super happy to see him get the wild card for a couple different years. Super great guy too. I love surfing with him. And then, now we have kind of a younger crop coming up. James Cusitino is amazing. He's an incredible backhand surfer. I remember him surfing at Cloudbreak, when he was, he's not that much older now, but when he was like 13 years old,
right.
I was like, I feared for his life. I was like, dude, let me give you like a safety vest or something. Cause he was charging on waves that like didn't even want to be ridden. So I'm really stoked to see, where he's taken Fijian surfing. And I think he's kind of the next thing in Fiji surfing as far as the level it's going to go to.
Yeah. A wave like Cloudbreak and a wave like restaurants and the islands of Tavarua and Namotu, they really have become synonymous with the, Bugs's vision for the Dream Tour. But they also could have gone a different route. Like they could have gone, like surfers would have made the pilgrimage there regardless if there was, an annual competition or an annual kind of competitive structure there. What are your thoughts on that? And was there ever kind of a point in your role with Tavarua and sort of stewarding these waves with the community where you thought, we're not really interested in the competitive route or having competitions here? But maybe that wasn't the case, because I think on the other side of that, like seeing the world's best surfers live and performing in that arena is probably great for the local community as well.
No, absolutely. It is, right. And I think, competition in general is a big thing for Fiji, for Fijians, as one of the best rugby teams in the world. Right. And so, I think competition is really, really good. It's really important for the country. It's a matter of pride. And, it's part of the culture down here. But having said that, I think a lot of pros and everyone, that have visited Tavarua over the years, obviously it hasn't been about competition. It's been the opposite of that. It's being able to just like get incredible waves with just a few of your friends out. And, some of those friends, are Fijian surfers too. And then for them to watch pro surfers that aren't in a competitive environment, just like relaxing and obviously ripping and everything, it's been amazingly inspirational for everyone.
Yeah, it's such a unique, I feel so fortunate I got to spend some time there over the years, but it's such a unique stop even when you look at the rest of the tour too, just from a logistics standpoint. Everyone stays on the same island. Everyone eats together, like the local Fijians that are the support network on the island. It is such a family, and it is so different to every other stop on tour. And I would imagine that has to have some impact on like how well everyone surfs and what the vibe is actually in the event compared to other spots. Have you given any thought to that, and has that actually gone into how you think about like hospitality and logistics when the event's on?
I think that's the biggest thing about, coming to Fiji, for a surf trip. Sure, the waves are amazing and everything, you want to absolutely score. But I think, just the whole vibe of Fiji and the Fijians and the culture and everything else, it's so much, it's way above the waves you get. And I think really at the end of the day, that's kind of the most important thing to people that come and visit, Tavarua or even some of the other islands. You're experiencing Fijian hospitality and culture and the most incredible friendliest people in the world and everything. It almost at the end of it doesn't even matter what waves you got. And I think that's been really special, unique to this country for sure.
Yeah. I'm sure that like if, having your top 5 friends in a phone was still a thing, you would probably be in Kelly Slater's I think you guys have had such a close relationship over the years. He was at the event last year coaching Aaron Brooks to victory.
Yeah.
I believe he's there now doing research and development with Firewire surfboards, which is great work if you can get it. But word on the street is he may be lending his coaching abilities to maybe even Jordy at this event. Yes, it's coming out in a couple of weeks. I won't put you on the spot too much, but can you confirm or deny if we might be seeing the great one in the lineup during the finals?
I can neither confirm nor deny, but of course, I'm always rooting for Kelly. I don't even care that he's retired. We've been friends for a super long time, and I still think his surfing is next level. Even, taking into consideration like young kids and everything else. I mean, Kelly's a master, right?
Yeah. No, totally. Well, everyone, make sure that you tune in the Lexus WSL Finals Fiji, presented by Corona Sarah. It starts on August 27th. It runs through September 4th. I'm guessing we haven't run by the time this airs. So everyone, make sure you're watching this event. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going to take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to talk a lot more about Jon Roseman. Welcome back to the lineup. I'm Dave Prodan here with the one and only Jon Roseman. Jon, I mentioned you originally hail from La Jolla in California, and you are a fixture at Tavarua. There's no other way to slice that. Do you consider one location more your home than the other these days? I mean,
that's tough. I mean, Fiji really has become my home, for, I don't want to age myself, but yeah, we're getting there, getting close to 40 years. But La Jolla is really fortunate to grow up at Windsea and the reefs around there. And they really gave me the foundation, as a kid to be able to surf the waves down here. So, and I still have such a tight fabric of friends and family from back in La Jolla. And then my Fijian family here. I feel like I'm lucky. I have a foot in both places.
Makes a lot of sense. But you really do, I think, for a generation of surfers, I'd imagine all generations of surfers really have kind of cultivated, and I'm not trying to dismiss how difficult it's probably been at times, but cultivated a life that is so dreamlike, right? Coming from Southern California, having this connective tissue with literally one of the best locations on the planet for a surfer. How did that come to be? Walk us through kind of the early life in California. Did you go to university? What was sort of those first steps towards building a life in Fiji as well?
Yeah. So, I went to UC Santa Barbara way back when.
Go Gauchos. Yeah.
Go Gauchos, right?
Yeah. We're all over.
Long story short, I, broke up with a girlfriend, moved to Hawaii for a little bit, late 80s. Heard there was an amazing left in Fiji. And again, this is late 80s and super long time ago. And Fiji was pretty primitive in those days. And I'm like, okay, I should check it out. And I was on the way to Australia to visit a couple of friends and shoot up to Indo. And I basically came to Fiji for 1 week and I never left. Literally just never left. The island was super primitive in those days. Dave Clark was down here and he ran it with Scott Funk as a surf camp. Basically, no real running water or shower bags, one kind of bathroom block, call it, for the whole island. I mean, it was super, super primitive surf camp. It was what I call the Wild West back then, and fell in love with it. And that was it. I literally haven't left to this day.
I mean, I touched on it in that first segment, but this is something that was very apparent to me as a hardcore surf fan, even before I came to work at the ASP, which is now 20 years ago. But it was always these stories of the tour coming to Cloudbreak and scoring huge waves. And without fail, a note in every single one of those stories is that in the midst of the world's best surfers, the actual best surfer out there is a guy named Jon Roseman. It kind of for a civilian kid, blows your mind where you're like, whoa, what is this? How did this come to be? But, as far as your surfing life goes, and I've had the good fortune of surfing with you, so I can kind of attest to how good you are at these places as well. But was there ever a professional surfing path, a professional shaping path that you were exploring?
Well, I would say so much. Yeah. For one, thank you for that. And I might just be a little bit, but yeah, I wouldn't say so much professional. I mean, competed, in amateur events for sure. And still do. I love competition. I think I get pretty competitive with myself. And as I was mentioning, coming to Fiji in the Wild West days, late 80s, there wasn't much around, and Cloudbreak was just so raw and intense, and I just became addicted to it. It was incredible. And of course everyone loves getting barreled, and the barrels were just so different, intense, and always changing, and it was just like this challenge that to this day I haven't conquered. I mean, Cloudbreak always wins. Like I don't think anyone in the world can ever have Cloudbreak wired, quote unquote. But I love surfing. It's a passion. I just became addicted to it as a little kid. My dad fortunately pushed me into surfing, and I was been very lucky to be down here and experience the best waves. And there's not one day that goes by that I'm not thankful, and that I don't absolutely love getting barreled out of my mind when it's good.
Yeah. You mentioned, it does seem like forecast-wise and operations-wise, we're more than likely to see the WSL Finals at Cloudbreak. I mean, there are 2 world-class waves in and around Tavarua, the second being restaurants. And, again, count my lucky stars, I've got to surf it a bunch. And I mean, I would say that just as a tiny civilian opinion there, it has to be the most perfect wave I've ever surfed, in the sense of it can look terrifying, but, I always tell people, I'm like, once you're in, the only way you get in trouble is if you do something stupid. You will never not have enough speed to make the wave, in a lot of ways. But can you talk to the listeners a little bit about the key differences? Because whereas I think you're talking rightly about how Cloudbreak is always changing and always unique, it's almost a foil to how perfect and ruler edge restaurants is in a lot of ways.
Yeah, totally, Dave. That's so funny you brought it up. It's a total dichotomy. You have again, restaurants is perfect. There's never a section in front of itself. There's no such thing as backdooring a barrel at restaurants, unless
right.
Technically, unless you're way up the reef, and then it's a whole different story. But yeah, it's perfect ruler edge, and if you fall, it's kind of on you, right? 100%. And definitely you beat yourself up if you fall out there, because you can't blame it on the wave. Whereas Cloudbreak is constantly shifting and changing. Every single wave is totally, totally different. You get the wave of your life, get barreled, spit out, kick out, and just be so happy. And all of a sudden there's 4 more waves that have swung wide that are right on your head and just punishing you. It's crazy. You literally have the 2 completely different waves, best of both worlds, just really, really different.
You mentioned going there was pretty Wild West. You are now the managing director and part owner of Tavarua. Can you describe the managing director role and how it's evolved over the years?
Sure. I mean, the very beginning, I managed the island with my partner, Rick Isbell, amazing partner. And we basically would just trade off 4 months on, 4 months off religiously for decades. And out of necessity, because, as beautiful and epic as Tavarua is, after 4 months, especially in those days, it was pretty intense, and you need a little bit of a break, right? Just get off the island. And so we basically high-fived and did this trade-off for years and years. Now, things have evolved, and, we have a couple of amazing GMs and their families. Kaio Chap, who's actually Rick's nephew, and Dylan Fish, and so they've been running the day-to-day, for 20 years now. And we have a great operations manager, Marissa Yam. So we have this incredible team. So I'm able to kind of go back and forth a little more than I used to. There's less pressure to hands-on manage versus kind of cherry pick, the oversight and things that need to be done. And obviously hang out a lot more with our guests, which amazing clientele that have been coming for a super, super long time. And I love more than anything, hanging out and surfing with my guests, and a couple shots of good tequila and everything else. It's really cool. So yeah, basically that's, it's hard work at times, but we do have it delegated much more than we used to. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we have this incredible team.
Yeah. Yeah, it is one of those things that anyone that knows anything about Tavarua is like it's almost virtually impossible to break into anyone's week, because once someone goes for the week, they're like, every week from here until I'm in the ground, like I'm coming here. It's interesting too. Like a few years ago, I had the good fortune of going to Garagegon for that event, and I hadn't been, and it's obviously evolved a lot since sort of the 80s and 90s when it was first pioneered. But I think I was kind of make this joke. I'm like, I think I'm the only person that had a good time. Like, I loved staying in the tents. I loved how raw it was. But I'm not saying the surfers didn't have a good time, but I do think that the Overton window of comfort in a lot of ways has changed so much in Indonesia because of, how things have changed on the Bukit. And so I think it was a little more raw than a lot of them were used to. But that's just sort of the sign of the times too. And like Tavarua, even the last time I was there was really like a world-class resort. Like people that kind of imagine going to a remote location to score perfect waves, like, are probably going to be surprised by all the amenities that are there. And, can you talk a little bit about, I'd imagine it's become a lot more family friendly over the decades as well.
It has. I mean, so, in the 80s and the 90s, it was kind of surf campy, right? Especially kind of the earlier 90s. It was so funny because, a little bit of a boys club with all the guys, but everyone wanted to keep it that way.
Yeah. There were some hot tub sessions where the ratio there was no ratio. It was just like 20 dudes. So.
Like man soup. Yeah. And so I'm glad those days are over. But no, I mean, it was funny though, because, as you mentioned, there was like these coveted weeks, a lot of surf industry weeks, et cetera. But a lot of guys kind of wanted to keep it like a guy's thing, right? Okay, honey, I'm going on my surf trip, and slowly the amenities started to evolve, and the surf trip got nicer and nicer, and then I think it got to the point where they couldn't keep it secret from the wives and families anymore. So then the wives started coming, and they're like, "Whoa, this is amazing!" And then the kids started coming, and then we're like, "Okay, well, now we really got to step up our game and make it more resorty, and for the people that don't surf, have some other things from them do, whether it's the diving or kind of the eco type stuff we do, with the reef and clams and turtles and food. And so, it was kind of a natural evolution. And we can't keep it secret anymore that it's, that it's just a guy's trip. I think, significant others, non-surfers, families have an amazing time. And more often than not now, they're even dragging their husbands and everything back the following year. So we're really happy about that.
That's awesome. I mean, I'd imagine you're like a very well-traveled surfer yourself, but I just, and I feel fortunate that I get to do it through work a lot too. But going back to the kind of the component of what makes Tavarua so special, like, was there a moment throughout the decades for you personally when you realized, like, this is going to become something special? Like, it's not just like another surf trip.
Exactly. And, to your point, I'm very lucky. I've, had some insane Indonesia trips. I used to go to G-Land a bit in the early days, and a lot of mainland Mexico and everything else. But just, something about the culture in Fiji and the Fijians and everything, combined with the waves, combined with everything else, it's just so unique. It literally, I can't even put words to it other than it's like a Disneyland on steroids. For surfers, for someone that loves being barefoot for a week straight and just having this quintessential, being on a quintessential South Pacific, sand island on that very edge of the reef. It's special beyond words. And as I mentioned, I went down for 1 week, when I was basically a little kid, and I never left. I was bitten at that point. I was like, wow, this is like the most special place in the world. And I think a lot of other people have realized that.
Yeah. I like how you talk about the Fijian community. This is another little story from a few years ago. I think we were having coffee or something, and you pulled me into your office, and maybe Dave was there or Dylan, I can't remember. But I remember I was sort of the ranking member from the ASP at the time left on the island, my cross to bear. And you guys are like, there's a little bit of an issue, the Fijian community that steward the reef, like typically, the event will do a fundraiser and support them, and you guys haven't done it over the last few years, and I'm like, oh no, and I'm like, well, what how much do we owe? And you told me the number. I don't want to share it here, but I'm like, oh, okay, we could do that, no problem. But it turned into a day where we took the boats like up through the mangroves, like to Fiji village, and a good amount of kava was consumed. But like the surfers and the people, it is a really harmonious relationship, more so than I've seen anywhere else in the world, between the local Fijian communities and the surfers and the surf tourism aspect of that. Can you talk to me about like the genesis of that relationship? And I would imagine it's been there from the jump, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is, without besmirching other parts of the planet, like it's not always a super harmonious relationship between the native indigenous people and the surfers that are coming there. It's completely the opposite in Fiji. I'm curious how that got started.
No, it's a great question. And going back, I apologize for any pressure we put on you, peer pressure.
No, I'm glad. I'll put it this way: I was honored to be pressured and included. So
no, that totally. So yeah, I mean, we're really, really fortunate to have the relationship that we do with the surrounding villages. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, there is no Tavarua without the support of the entire community around us beyond just the island. And that extends all the way up to government and everyone else in Fiji. Fiji is a very communal country. Everyone's related, and it's important that that basically you have the support and buy-in from everyone. Going back in time to when Tavarua was founded by Dave Clark, I guess the very first year that he kind of came down here and got the original government approvals was 1982. And back then, no one really understood what surfing was, and definitely didn't understand the concept of surfing on an outer reef. Right. And especially outer reef like Cloudbreak, which the traditional name is Nakurakura, which means thundercloud reef. Because the Fijians, would look at all this mist on the horizon when the waves are big and think, oh my gosh, okay, well we're not going fishing that day. Right. Because the waves are huge. But yeah, Dave was able to get the support of government and the traditional landowner of Tavarua and the surrounding villages to do really what was a joint venture to basically, share proceeds from the island with the local community, with the landowners and everyone else. And it became kind of this, symbiotic relationship, because we employed, people from the villages and everything else as well, and trained them, and of course taught them surfing, and just we evolved together over the decades. And that evolution, these days is still 100% prevalent in there with everything we do, and everyone, the way we abide by, certain customs and protocols and everything else. And it brings a lot to the table for Tavarua and the experience that the guests have.
Oh, I can attest to that for sure. It's so special. I think what goes hand in hand as well is it's impossible to visit Tavarua and not just be in complete awe of the natural beauty and the ecosystem around that. And it's not gone unnoticed that over the last several years, maybe decades, you particularly have kind of zeroed in on a focus on the sustainability and ecological parts of Tavarua. Can you talk to us a little bit about those projects? And, there may be another thing that was there from the jump, but it feels like it's gotten organized in like a really effective way over the last several years.
It has. So yeah, definitely we've implemented all sorts of sustainability measures here on the island, on the reef system, and throughout the community and everything. And then that has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people, but we're still really active in helping the villages, in the promotion of economic welfare, which is whether it's housing and scholarships and school projects and medical assistance and everything else. We're carrying that tradition, from what we've always held and firmly believed, in order for us to be prosperous, everyone around us has to be prosperous. And that also includes the environment. So, we were fortunate to collaborate with the Ministry of Fisheries to do a giant clam seeding project on our surrounding reef system. My partner Rick has been incredibly instrumental in following through with that. And we recently have an official marine protected area recognized by the government and the world as part of the work that we do. What's been amazing about the Giant Clam Project is not just seedlings. We've also flown in these endangered species from outer islands, and some of them can be 400 or 500 pounds, et cetera, and just literally planted all these different clams on the reef. We have tanks, where we kind of germinate giant clams on the island itself and grow them to a certain size before placing them on the reef. And basically we have I call it the Beatles song, giant or octopus garden under the sea. I mean, it's a giant clam project with all these different colors and everything. It's been amazing. And the whole reef system around it has been responding. So we have higher levels of, tropical fish and all the different other kind of sea life that propagate around giant clams. And then we do the same with turtles. We have a lot of turtle hatchings on the island. And when we do recognize, a turtle nest, we mark it, and, X amount of time later, they'll hatch, and we'll let a lot of our guests, and kids and everything run around, and they'll collect the baby turtles. We'll put them in tanks and get them strong enough, maybe over 2 or 3 weeks, because, the life expectancy of a baby turtle is just getting to the water and avoiding birds and all the other predators. It's very, very low. Maybe one, and again, don't quote me on this, but maybe 1 out of every 100 make it. It's
right.
It's a tough statistic.
Yeah.
So the environment's been a huge thing. We're stewards of the environment around us, and I think it's important. I mean, really, I'd love to see us, be a model for the rest of Fiji, where kind of the private sector can collaborate with government and, even nonprofit organizations to, basically save the reefs.
Yeah. I mean, I think both those elements, the connection with the local community as well as the ecological focus, are what really elevate the surf trip aspect of being there, because I'm not saying everyone feels guilty going surfing. It is a selfish pursuit, is what it is. But it is like an elevated experience where it's like, I'm getting so many waves and I'm feeling a lot better just being on this island and doing what the community's doing and speak. And it does feel more family-like. One of the things that people love talking about, one thing that I noticed firsthand when I was there is, the boatman, the surf guide community you guys have over the years. There's been elite level surfers that have taken up sort of surf guides and boatman stints on Tavarua, and the ones that people haven't heard about surf maybe just as good, if not better. I think that's always the thing that you're shocked about, where you're like, oh, it's kind of pumping, and oh my God, the boatman's got like the best wave of the day kind of thing. Can you explain to the listeners just what that phenomenon is a little bit? Like, what is a boatman on Tavarua, and and maybe some of the incoming requests you get from people? They're like, I'm put my hand up for that.
Yeah, I mean, basically we have volunteer lifeguards that have a ton of experience. They're EMTs, they're literally professional lifeguards. A lot of my friends are in San Diego and Australia and Hawaii, of course. They come down and basically they're there to offer support if something really, really bad happens. And of course, you're out on the edge of this reef, miles off of the main island of Itilavu and a mile off of Tavarua. And unfortunately, things can go wrong. So they're there when they can do that. I trust them to be able to the best of their ability, handle a water rescue situation. And of course, when the stray perfect wave comes by, with their experience, water, they're usually pretty solid watermen. Yeah, they're going to go and they're going to get an amazing wave too. So no problem there. I mean, that's their payout, right? But they're also keeping everyone safe.
Yeah, no, it's a very cool aspect to staying on Tavarua. Bringing it back to your own surfing, Jon. I mean, I'll put you on the spot. You're what, 50, 45?
Yeah, let's call it in the 50s.
Well, okay. Well, so you're on the Benjamin Button juice. As a surfer, what is your routine for staying in a position where, when these mega swells come up, you still feel confident being out there? Like, what is sort of your week in, week out routine?
I think the first most important thing to stay in shape for surfing is to surf. I firmly believe that, you can cross train a million different methods and everything else and run 20 miles a day. It will not keep you in shape for surfing. like surfing does. And so even if the waves are absolutely terrible, which fortunately rarely happens in Fiji, but you always go out and you just get a few waves. It's just the timing, everything else, the water, everything. It keeps you on top of your game. But of course, as I got a little older, I do cross train a lot. I have a super, super good trainer, Jehan in La Jolla. He does amazing things for surf training specific. Just different interval training. And of course, I like to free dive a lot. So that helps with breath hold and just staying in shape, eating really well, your best, 90-10 rule, eat 90% of the time, super, super good, 10% just blow it, but it'll be okay. Which includes tequila and, some ice cold beers or whatever. I mean, that's fine. You got to balance it out. But yeah, surfing is staying active, period. And keeping your brain active. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think in the intro, I said something about you've been a fixture in, more historic swells than you can count, but I might have been lying. Like you must have memories of swells that stand out and waves that stand out. Are there any in particular that when you think back of all the waves and all the barrels that you've gotten out at Cloudbreak and restaurants, can you still zero in on certain sessions where you're like, that was, upper tier?
For sure. I mean, yeah, I've been fortunate to experience a whole bunch of different ones, and every single swell is super, super different. I think what's amazing about Cloudbreak, it's good at 2 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. I mean, anything that Mother Nature will throw at it. But these second reef swells are pretty incredible. The shape of the reef when it gets on the outer ledge, which, kind of happens at 15 feet and say, and bigger, it is the most perfect wave. And so, yeah, in the early days, we used to tow it a lot. And that was back when the wave runners were pretty primitive, the 650s and 701s. And remember, in those days, Jerry would come down a lot, with Buzzy, Kerbox, Derek Dorner. We had a pretty classic crew, Victor Lopez. And I mean, we had such a classic crew. And we used to tow it sun up to sundown, like literally, and just, God, the waves would be so incredible. And they would go through all these, changes throughout the day. But God, we'd be getting barreled out of our minds. So just that whole stretch was really amazing. And of course, we sacrificed a whole bunch of skis because, those things were so, they just didn't have much power. And there was like no V in the hull. Like if the guy was towing him back and hanging on for too long, when he'd kick out of the wave and whipping him in, you basically whip the whole ski over the falls with him. But I guess, all right. So one day in particular that was mind blowing was probably with a lifeguard of mine, Hans Peterson, legendary. Back in I think it was like 1995. I don't even know why I can remember the year, on Easter. I remember waking up and seeing restaurants like solid 8 to 10 feet. And the waves were only like 10 seconds long. Like the swell had so much interval on it and was moving so fast that it was just like flying by the coconut trees kind of measuring it, and just these giant barrels on the outside and just these giant white water balls going into the boats. And it was like sheet glass. And I just remember going, God, Hans, we got to go look at Cloudbreak. We got to go see it. We just got to check it out. And so we grabbed a couple boards and jammed out. And we were going through these giant shaving cream foam balls between Tavarua and Cloudbreak. Like, literally, like the foam balls were like, 4 feet tall or whatever, 3 or 4 feet. It was crazy. These big sections from like when a big set of Cloudbreak would go through. Pulled up as we got closer to Cloudbreak, it looked like it could have been like 2 to 4 feet, but it was like 20 to 30 feet. It was just so glassy, you could just drop a pin on the ocean, and just insane. And I remember back in those days, no life vests, no safety equipment. We had like red rash guards in case, someone ate it. You could see them hopefully before they drowned. And I remember we towed, I think we got like 6 waves each. It was like some of the most insane, perfect lassie, giant waves that I've ever surfed in my life. And I just remember, okay, okay, we're done. We could stay out all day, but I guarantee probably one of us is going to drown. And then we were just like, it was incredible. I'll never forget it. It was absolutely like, I don't know, like I saw God. Like it was insane. So that was one day in particular. I've had some incredible days with Jojo Roper a few years ago, that was swell just jumped up in the middle of the day, kind of unexpected. And we just happened to be sitting out there waiting for the swell, but it didn't look like it was going to do it. And all of a sudden it did it. And that was incredible. And there's a lot. I've been really, really lucky. Back with Conan Hayes in the early days, and Tom Survey had this incredible swell. That was amazing. Yeah, I could probably be on this podcast for another 6 hours and tell you about different ones.
We'll save it. We'll just bring you back. But that's a really good answer. We got a couple more topics to get into, as well as some listener questions. We're going to take one more quick break to get a word in from our sponsors. And when we come back, we will finish up with the one and only Jon Roseman. All right, welcome back to the lineup. I am Dave Prodan here with the one and only Jon Roseman. Jon, you mentioned a few names of Fijians, like young Fijians. You mentioned Tavita. You obviously, between your decades of sort of cutting edge surfing, coming up in Southern California, being in Fiji, seeing virtually the entire evolution of Fijian surfing, can you go through a couple of the names of young surfers that you think maybe on the global stage and maybe on the championship tour, maybe competing for a world title in future? I think with the waves as the background and how good and athletic Fijians are, like it seems like it would only be a matter of time, but I could be off on that.
Yeah. No, thanks. I think for sure you're going to see a Fijian on the world tour in the next, say several years. I mean, already on the world tour, you're seeing a lot of other countries that, maybe people would have never thought would have been represented on the tour now. I mean, Mexico, et cetera. I could write down the list.
Which is Indonesia. Insane. Yeah, absolutely.
Indonesia. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Indonesia, Costa Rica.
Yeah.
It's a matter of time for Fiji. And I think this young crop that's coming up, I mentioned James, just because, he's just charging so hard right now. And I think he's putting a lot of effort into his professional surfing development. He has a lot of people backing him too, which is great. I think you'll see him go pretty far, but I think in general, the next 5 years, you're going to see a really, really good young crop coming up. And I think their advantage, if you surf the reefs every single day, Cloudbreak, and even some of the other reefs around Fiji, they're a little more kind of obscure and misto, but, heavy. You're going to really see Fiji being represented. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Something Kolohe Andino brought this up to me years ago, and I've never forgot it. He's like, even for surfers like himself, like young surfers that are very well traveled, that have experience all over the world, he goes, in everyone's heart, there's like one wave, right? And I think we were talking about Jon at the time, and he goes, that's pipe for Jon. He goes, so every other wave that he surfs is through the lessons and the prism of basically that wave that's inside his heart. So he's so radical, like in critical surf and in critical ocean conditions, just because he just kind of had to cut his teeth at that kind of a wave. And he was kind of saying, he's like, mine's lower, so it's like the easiest wave to rip on the planet kind of thing. But I've always thought of that too. And you can look at like surfers like Jack Robinson growing up in Western Australia. And it does seem like if you are able to develop into a world-class surfer, but you come from a place where there are elite level waves, Restaurant and Cloudbreak being two of them, once you're on the championship tour, that translates to so many conditions and so many different waves in a really unique way.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's, it's a benefit and a challenge at the same time. So, for example, hopefully there'll be a Fijian surfer on tour in the very near future. But once they're on tour, or to get actually on tour, you have to not just be able to charge giant Cloudbreak. You have to be able to surf all these other types of waves. You have to be able to go rip at trestles. You have to go be able to rip at J-Bay, which is an insane wave, or even the surf rounds, or Abu Dhabi, right? You have to be able to handle kind of wave pool stuff, which is, obviously come on pretty hard the last couple of years. So you have to diversify your surfing. So what does that mean for, Fijian surfer or someone like that? It means they got to, unfortunately, they'll hate it, but they're going to have to go spend time surfing less quality waves to stay competitive.
Yeah. Well, it can be done. I think the other thing we always thought of too, before Rio Waida qualified from Indonesia, was, there were world-class Indonesian surfers, but they're like, why would I leave Indonesia?
Yeah,
kind of similar, right? For Fijians as well. We're like, why would I go? It's cold. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
Yeah.
There's 100% that component.
Back to Tavarua, like again, I don't want to fan out too hard here with you, but like, just I'm in awe of like what you've built there. And obviously you're a humble guy. You're not saying you did it by yourself, but like, when you think of the next 40 years of operations in Tavarua, like, are there any benchmarks? Are there any goals that you have personally that you'd like to see at the place?
I mean, no, thank you. I want to, how do I word this the right way? I want to carry on all the good things that we've done and just make them that much better, which is translating to the guest experience. And I guess in this case, we're getting to like second generation guests and even third generation guests, right? After 40 years. I mean, 40 years is a really, really long time, although it seems like yesterday. You get time warped in Fiji, but I guess the benchmark measurement for success that I would base us on would be future generations of families and everyone else just carrying on the tradition, coming out and experiencing it like their parents did and even like their grandparents did. And I think that's our goal for the next 40 years. So just keep sharing the Bula spirit, the incredible environment, the waves, but really the Fijians and just the magic that Tavarua is with future generations of everyone, of people.
Yeah. And even for listeners out there that are interested in going and staying at Tavarua, it's no longer like it was where you needed some dark magic, sacrifice a goat into a copper bowl and find an open week. Like, it's a lot, not easier to get on because the demand is so high. But for those out there that are interested in booking a stay at Tavarua, what's the pathway?
Yeah, we work with our partners at Waterways Travel. They are just on top of our calendar and everything else. And really, there's openings throughout the year for sure. We're fortunate to still have kind of our core groups with their select weeks, but even there's openings then. I mean, a little bit of a misnomer to say that, yeah, we're completely booked. You can't get in for 10 years. There's definitely availability openings, and we want to make it, so that everyone can come experience the magic that the Tavarua is. We really, really do. So yeah, definitely reach out. Check out our website, of course, tavarua.com. And yeah, be super stoked to see everyone down here. It's a pretty magic place, and I don't know, my opinion, one of the best places in the whole entire world.
My opinion as well. Anyone that books it will not regret it. And for those listening, make sure you catch the Lexus WSL Finals Fiji presented by Corona Cerro. Window starts on August 27th, which is already passed by the time this airs, but runs through September 4th. I think we're going to be running either today or in the coming days. Jon, before you go, we did reach out to the folks at the Lineup Pod on Instagram for questions for you. We got a lot of questions for you, but we've whittled them down to 3. First question is from AC Condon, who asks, will you be competing in a Legends Heat at 8 to 10 foot Cloudbreak if we have one?
If you have one, I'm not going to say no to that for sure, especially if it's 8 to 10 foot Cloudbreak. No, thank you for that question. That'd be awesome. I'm not sure that, that we're going to have a Legends event, but it's not up to me. It's the powers that be with WSL. But yeah, thank you.
Yep. Second question from @JHaley87, who asks, how do judges, we kind of talked on this a little bit, but like, how do judges adjust scoring rides, at Cloudbreak versus restaurants? I
mean, yeah, Cloudbreak is a way more intense wave with way more variables and everything else. I think that surfers that put themselves in a more critical position at Cloudbreak will be judged higher. I think restaurants is almost like this perfect slate. I don't want to say it's like a wave pool, but it does kind of have that consistent medium of a wave where it's going to be judged much more on different maneuvers and things like that. Yeah, Cloudbreak, there'll be a big component on just the pure intensity and putting yourself in critical places.
Great answer. Last question. I said I wasn't going to put you on the spot for this, but this is a fan, so you have to answer. From @Aiden_StackChessa, who are your predictions for the world title this year?
Oh boy, I know. God, I hate to put myself out there because I love the top 5 in both of them. I you know what? I'm not going to do it. I think it's going to be incredible surfing on both. I mean, obviously, like the top women and the top men, by design, have the advantage. They don't have to go through all the different preliminary heats.
Sure, yeah.
But watch out for Jack. A little about that. Watch them grind through from the bottom, because you know what? Everyone loves an underdog. Just saying.
Yeah. It's interesting, like even like for fans of other sports, like the pundits will, when they're talking about like, well, what are the odds for MVP or who's going to win the NFC West or whatever, like they always kind of go through the data and the metrics, but then another part of it is like, well, narratively, could I see this happening? Like, what would be the narrative if Italo won, or if Gabriella won, or whatever it is, and I like that, because I think if you look at the top 5 men and women from this season, I'm like, I could see every single one of them winning the world title, and I know what the story would be, kind of thing. So no, diplomatic answer. I appreciate you naming some there.
Maybe a little too diplomatic, but Nah,
that's fair. I mean, if this were coming out before we ran, we'd bleep it out just for that. But nah, you're good. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, if we get closer wave prediction wise and everything, I'll probably fine tune my answer a little bit, but yeah.
Fair enough.
Leave it there.
Appreciate everyone that wrote in at the lineup pod. John, we have one final segment. It's called the lightning round. So these are 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can. If you could only have one board set up for the rest of your life, single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad bonzer, or finless, which would you choose?
Quad.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Burrito or pizza?
Burrito.
Last book you read?
Oh, Hemingway. Yeah, Garden of Eden. It was a weird one.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I feel like you could probably write some Hemingway stuff the way you've lived your life. Best surf film ever?
5 Summer Stories.
Yeah, God, we had Greg McGillivray on, I don't know how long ago, Time's a Flat Circle. Such an awesome guy. Such a good movie. Okay, what is one wave you never have to go back to?
Never have to go back to?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy. I love surfing so much. That's a really, really tough one. I probably don't need to surf Topanga again.
Fair enough.
Even though I respect everyone that does, but
of course,
I didn't get it on the best day.
There you go. If you could only surf one wave for the rest of your life, and you can dreamcast it, perfect conditions, just you and your friends, which wave would it be?
Cloudbreak all day long.
Okay, I would have put money on that answer. Best person to share the lineup with?
Ooh, I mean, I have a bunch of people, but Kelly. Love surfing with Kelly. We've had incredible memories over the years of really perfect days with actually just the 2 of us out. So yeah.
Worst person to share a lineup with?
Worst person? Oh, there is no worst person. The waves are good. Everyone's your friend.
That's fair. Last one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by...
I will next achieve a state of happiness by seeing a smile on everyone's face that are coming out of a perfect barrel as I'm paddling out.
Great answer. Jon Roseman, thank you so much for everything you do in surfing. Thank you for sharing all your stories with us. And thanks for coming on the lineup.
Dave, thanks so much. Real pleasure. And we're looking forward to an amazing finals. Thank you so much.